Welcome to HFY Alien Shadow. You love epic sci-fi stories where humanity shines? You're in the right place. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for thrilling HFY adventures. Join us and be part of the journey. The silent plea *, the city was broken. Its towers burned black. Its streets silent and full of ash. Ethan stepped carefully over fallen stone, his boots crunching soft debris as he moved through the ruined alien world. The war was over, but the ghosts remained in every corner, whispering through the wind and crumbling walls. He wasn't here to fight anymore. He was searching, looking for any life left behind, any spark worth saving. He didn't expect to find it in a cracked temple at the edge of the city. The doors had collapsed long ago. But he pushed through the opening, flashlights sweeping over empty statues and shattered altars. Then he heard it, a sound so soft it barely reached his ears. Crying. It wasn't loud, it wasn't angry, it was tired, small, like someone trying to hold on after everything else had gone. He followed the sound down a short hallway and stopped. Lying against the wall was an alien woman, skin pale like blue frost, eyes half open, holding something tight to her chest. A baby, she looked up at him with hollow eyes and tried to speak. Her voice broke. Then she whispered in broken English, "Feed my daughter, take my body. Tonight, it is yours." Ethan froze. The words weren't seductive. They were desperate. Her face was full of pain, not pleasure, and the child in her arms whimpered again. Small hands curled in weakness. He crouched beside her. The woman flinched, then relaxed when she saw he wasn't reaching for her. Instead, he pulled out a food ration and opened it carefully. The baby looked too weak to eat solid food. Ethan took water from his pack, mixed it into paste, and gently offered it to the child's lips. The baby sucked slowly, weak but willing. And the woman let out a shaking breath. She didn't try to stop him. She didn't offer her body again. She just watched her child eat with tears running silently down her cheeks. "What's your name?" Ethan asked softly, not expecting a reply. The woman took a moment, then spoke. "Lazari?" "Ah." The baby stirred more now, its eyes opening a little. And Lazari gave the smallest smile Ethan had ever seen. He realized she'd meant to trade herself to save her child, not out of fear, but out of love. It broke something inside him. He placed a thin blanket over them both. "Rest," he said. "I'll keep watch." Outside, the wind howled through broken towers, but inside the temple, there was only breathing, slow and quiet. The sound of life still trying to survive. Lazari woke hours later, and her eyes had more focus now. She looked at Ethan and said, "You are not like others." Ethan didn't answer right away. He thought about the soldiers who had destroyed cities like this, who didn't care who lived or died. "I'm not a soldier anymore," he said. She nodded slowly. "My people are almost gone," she whispered. "We lost the war, but I did not want to die angry. I wanted her to live." Ethan looked at the child. She was small, almost fragile, but her breathing was strong now. "What's her name?" he asked. Lazari hesitated, then touched the baby's cheek. "Her name is Alira," she said softly. "She is not like me. Or you." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean? She is?" "Part human," Lazari said. "Made during the project, before the bombs fell." Ethan's heart jumped. He had heard of secret experiments, of combining alien and human genes, but he thought they were just stories. Now the story was breathing in his arms. Lazari's eyes began to close again. "You must take her," she said. "If they find her, they will kill her. They fear what she is." Ethan felt the weight of her words. He looked at Alira, then at Lazari. "I'll protect her," he said. Lazari gave a weak smile. Then, as if a great weight had been lifted from her, she whispered, "Thank you," and slipped back into sleep. Ethan sat beside them, rifle in hand, eyes watching the shadows. But for the first time in weeks, he wasn't alone. He had found something worth protecting, and far above, through a hole in the temple ceiling. The stars watched silently over the last hope of two worlds. Asterisk a name in the dust. Asterisk snowflakes drifted through the cracks in the ceiling, falling like tiny feathers over the sleeping child. Elira was warm now, wrapped in Ethan's spare jacket, her tiny chest rising slowly as she dreamed. Lysari lay nearby, her breathing shallow but steady. Her arms stretched protectively toward her daughter. Ethan didn't sleep. His back was against the cold wall, his rifle across his knees, and his ears tuned to every whisper outside the temple. Something about this place felt like a pause between storms. When morning came, light poured in. Cold and gray, Ethan stood and stretched his legs, then knelt beside Lysari. She stirred, her eyes blinking open slowly, the pain in her face clearer under daylight. "Still here," she whispered. Almost surprised, Ethan nodded and held out a warm drink from his flask. She took it with trembling hands and sipped carefully. "I didn't leave," Ethan said. "I won't leave." Lysari looked down at Elira and gave a weak smile. "She sleeps like her father," she said, deep and without fear. Ethan raised his brow. "You said she was part human," was her father. Lysari looked away. "He was a test subject," she said. "He didn't know." None of them did. The project used his DNA without asking. Ethan's jaw tightened. He hated those stories, the ones that turned humans into tools and aliens into machines. Why, he asked. Why make her? Because they feared extinction, Lysari said. They wanted a new kind, strong, adaptable. Someone who could survive both our worlds. Ethan looked at Elira again, and now her face seemed both familiar and strange. She looked more human than alien. But her skin had a faint shimmer, and her eyes when open glowed with quiet light. "Where are the others?" Ethan asked. "Dead," Lysari said simply. "Bombs fell. Firestorms. No warning. My team died in the first wave. I ran. I hid. I gave birth alone." Ethan rubbed dust from the corner of his eye and stood. "We need to move. It's not safe here. Scanners might still sweep this area." Lysari nodded, but didn't try to stand. "My legs are no longer strong," she whispered. "I'll carry her," Ethan said. Lysari looked at him, not with fear, but relief. "You are different," she said, "not like the others. You see her, not as a thing, but as someone." He picked up Elira gently, and the baby stirred, then settled again in his arms. She made a small sound, almost like a sigh. Ethan looked around the ruined temple and spoke softly. "Do you have anything else to take?" Lysari reached into her pocket and pulled out a metal disc. It's cracked, but glowing faintly. "A name," she said. "This holds her name, her truth, her proof. If I die, you must protect it." Ethan took the disc and slipped it into his pouch. "Understood." "Ah," he said. They left the temple slowly. Ethan helped Lysari walk at first, but soon she leaned too much and he had to carry her too. With one arm, he held the mother, and with the other, the child. The cold air bit at his skin as he moved through the broken streets. Every step was careful, every sound suspicious. Drones sometimes passed overhead, scanning for movement. But Ethan found cover each time they moved into the countryside, where the buildings grew fewer and the silence grew deeper. There, they found a frozen field and an old road buried under snow. Ethan walked until his legs ached, then stopped beneath a dead tree to rest. Lysari opened her eyes and whispered, "Where are we going?" "My outpost," Ethan said. "Still active. Supplies. Maybe even other survivors." She nodded faintly, then reached out a hand to touch Elira's face. "I never meant to live," Lysari said, "only to bring her into the world." "You're still alive," Ethan said. That means something. Snow started falling again. Thicker this time, covering their footprints behind them. Ethan looked back once. Then forward again. He could feel something watching them from the hills beyond, something that didn't belong. He didn't speak of it, but he gripped his rifle tighter and shifted Alira closer to his chest. The baby moved softly, as if sensing the change in his heart. When night came, Ethan found shelter inside an abandoned service station he cleared. Out broken chairs and laid Lizari on a pile of old blankets. Then he built a small fire and warmed water for them both. Alira drank again. Stronger now. Lizari watched her and whispered, "She has your eyes." Though you are not her father, Ethan didn't know what to say. He simply nodded, eyes on the flame. Mind full of questions, but one thing was clear. He couldn't leave them now. He didn't know what Alira was, or what she would become. But she was alive, and that meant she mattered. As the firelight danced on the walls, Carrie whispered something Ethan almost didn't hear. She was meant to be the bridge, she said, between what we were and what we might still become. The cold road, the wind, screamed louder as they crossed the frozen field. Each step sinking into a layer of snow that swallowed sound and shape alike. Ethan's breath fogged the air, his arms aching as he carried Lysari against one shoulder. And Alira cradled at his chest. The silence around them was heavy, not peaceful, but hollow, like the world had forgotten to breathe. Lysari no longer spoke much. Her eyes stayed half-closed. Her lips pale and dry, but her fingers always reached for Alira whenever the baby stirred. She didn't cry. She didn't plead. She simply endured. Holding on with the little strength she had left, Ethan had seen soldiers break under less pressure. But this alien woman, nearly lifeless, still fought quietly for her daughter's next breath. He respected that more than he could say. Every mile brought new danger. Scanners floated above in lazy circles. Machines built to track survivors and remove them cleanly. Ethan avoided them by dipping into craters and crawling through burnt-out tunnels, always listening for the hum of engines. Alira barely cried anymore. She was quiet now. Too quiet, and Ethan worried. He gave her tiny drops of heated water, fed her the softest food he had, and whispered gentle words like he had once done for his baby sister years ago. That memory hurt more than the cold. He remembered her face, his sister's lost in the first wave of the war. She had looked at him the same way Alira did now, with trust, with peace, with complete innocence. Lysari's voice came again, weak and dry. "Don't stop moving." They watched the skies. Ethan nodded and shifted her weight carefully. He didn't tell her the truth. They were being followed, not just by drones, but by something else. Something that left strange, three-toed tracks in the snow behind them. Ethan had noticed it yesterday, but said nothing. If Lysari lost hope, she might lose everything. So he kept it inside and watched every shadow stretched too far in the pale sunlight. The road ahead sloped downward into a broken riverbed, now frozen solid. A collapsed bridge lay like a dead beast over the ice, its metal ribs sticking out in jagged angles. Ethan studied the area and chose to cross the ice quickly, watching for signs of weakness. Halfway across, a howl split the sky. Not mechanical, not humans, something in between, echoing off the stone and snow like it was hunting. Ethan didn't run. Running would shake the baby, worsen Lysari's pain, and mark them like prey. So he walked, steady and firm, like a man who had nothing left to lose. They made it across just as another sound reached the metal shifting behind snow-covered rocks. Something or someone was there. Ethan turned slowly, lifting his rifle without aiming. "Whoever you are," he said. "I don't want to fight, but I won't run either." Silence followed. Then, from behind the rocks, a tall figure rose. Alien, but not like Lysari. This one wore armor made of bone and metal, its face hidden by a mask shaped like a snarling beast. Lysari stirred in Ethan's arms and hissed through her teeth. Zernan, one of the hunters. The figure stepped closer, but slowly, not attacking. Its voice came through the mask, harsh and deep. You carry the child, it said, the bridge child. Ethan tightened his grip on Alira. I carry a baby. It's all you need to know, he said. The hunter didn't raise a weapon. Instead, he removed the mask. Underneath was a face like cracked obsidian, but its eyes were calm. Not cruel. I was part of the old guard, it said. I was ordered to find and kill what remained. But I saw the prophecy before the end. Ethan frowned. What prophecy? The one that spoke of a new blood, the hunter said, born of war, made of both worlds, and carrying balance in her breath. Lysari coughed painfully. She is that child, she said. I told you they would fear her. But some believed. The hunter lowered itself to one knee in front of Alira, then bowed its head. I will not harm her, it said. I will protect her. I owe a debt to those I could not save. Ethan looked at Lysari, then back at the hunter. Then help us, he said. We're heading to a human outpost near the ridge. If it's still standing, she'll be safe there. The hunter stood and gave a nod. Then I walk with you. Human, it said, until she no longer needs me. Or I fall. As night returned and cold wind blew once more, three figures walked together across the dead world, a man without a home, a mother without time, and a hunter with a broken oath. And in the man's arms, the last hope of two species slept in silence. The unwanted guest. The old train station looked empty from the outside, its roof cracked, its glass long shattered, its rails buried under snow and ash. But Ethan felt it before he stepped inside, a strange pressure in the air. Like something held its breath in the dark, he shifted Alira to one arm and raised his rifle, motioning for the hunter to wait by. The door Lysari lay weakly against his chest, her voice now barely a whisper. Be careful. Not all things hiding are dead. Ethan stepped carefully into the shadows, boots echoing against the dusty floor. Light from his flashlight cutting through frozen silence. Broken benches, overturned luggage, and old burn marks marked the entrance hall. It was deathly quiet, too. Quiet, he moved slowly past a row of vending machines and stopped. Near a broken locker, something had scratched deep marks into the metal. Long and sharp, as if claws had been dragged across it in rage. He turned toward the waiting room. That's when he saw it movement. Fast and low, slipping behind a fallen support beam. Ethan raised his rifle without thinking. Show yourself, he said sharply. Now, silence answered him for a long second. Then a shape rose from the shadows, tall, thin, and wounded. It was another alien, not like Lysari. Not like the hunter, this one was younger. Its skin marked with war paint. Its eyes filled with suspicion. I have no weapon, the alien said, voice cracking. I am not your enemy unless you make me one. Ethan kept his gun steady, but didn't fire. He glanced behind him, and the hunter had entered now, standing silently by the doorway. Watching, Lysari opened her eyes from Ethan's arms and let out a surprised breath. Thalin, you survived. The young alien looked at her, eyes wide. You? I thought you were dead. And the child, she lives, Lysari said weakly. And now we walk with one of yours. And a human. Thalin stepped closer, looking at Alira with a mix of fear and wonder. She shouldn't exist. They said she was an error. An experiment gone wrong. Ethan frowned. She's a baby, he said. She's not a mistake. Thalin's eyes narrowed. That child has more power in her blood than anyone knows. If they find her, they'll tear apart every city to end her. Then help us stop them, Ethan said, lowering his rifle slightly. We're going to a human outpost. She needs safety, medicine, and time. The hunter finally spoke, his voice calm and deep. If you betray them, I will end you before you can blink. Thalon raised both hands slowly. I don't want war, he said. I've seen enough death. If the child really is the bridge, then I will not stand in her way. Ethan nodded once, then help us. We move at first light. That night, the station became a quiet shelter. The broken heaters were dead, but Ethan and the hunter built a small fire inside a metal barrel, warming the room bit by bit. Thalon stood near the door, staring at the dark like it would speak to him. Lysari drifted in and out of sleep, whispering to Alira in soft words from her native tongue. Ethan didn't understand them, but the rhythm was gentle, soothing, and full of love. He watched her with quiet respect, knowing every breath was a battle for her now. Then Alira opened her eyes again. They shimmered not just with light, but with layers of color that changed, like the sky. Thalon gasped softly, her eyes. They weren't like that before. Ethan looked closer. The baby's gaze moved between them all, calm but focused, like she understood something none of them could. She's aware, Lysari whispered, faster than human children. Faster than mine. She hears your heart. When you speak, Thalon knelt down beside them. She'll be hunted forever if we don't change the world for her. No, Ethan said firmly. She grow, and we'll keep her safe. Not because of what she might do, but because she's a child. That's reason enough. For a long time, no one spoke. The fire crackled, wind howled outside, and the baby slowly closed her eyes again. Safe in Ethan's arms, the station now held for souls. A dying mother who had given everything. A hunter who broke his oath. A rebel who survived the purge. And a human who carried them all. And in the middle of them, a child no one truly understood yet. All had chosen to protect. Morning would come with new danger, but for that one night, there was quiet. Not peace, not yet, but something close enough to let them hope again. The path of fire * snow had started falling sideways, pushed by a wind so sharp it cut through clothing like glass. Ethan's eyes narrowed against the cold as he stepped out of the station. Alira wrapped tightly against his chest, her soft breath warming his neck. Behind him, Lysari clung to his back, too weak to walk now, her body light as cloth, her heartbeat faint against his skin. Thalon led the way through the snowdrifts, scanning ahead with a rusted scope taken from a drone wreck. The hunter walked last, always watching their trail, leaving no footprints behind, brushing away every trace of their passing. Together they moved like ghosts, silent, careful, unseen. Ahead was the edge of the old ridge-burned stretch of land, littered with black trees and broken fences. Beyond that ridge was Ethan's outpost, hidden in the hills. If it still stood, they could rest there, maybe even find medicine for Lysari. But something was wrong. The closer they came, the more Ethan felt the air was too still, the animals too quiet, and the snow smelled faintly of metal. He raised one hand, signaling a stop. Thalon crouched low, eyes scanning the hills. I see movement, he said, but not drones. Too slow, too heavy. The hunter didn't speak. He simply pointed toward the horizon where thick smoke curled up into the clouds, black, oily, and rising from the outpost. Ethan's heart dropped. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small scope. Through it, he saw the walls of the outpost smashed open, defense turrets bent and twisted, and metal bodies scattered across the snow. Raiders, he whispered, not machines, not soldiers, just scavengers picking the bones. Lysari stirred weakly behind him. We cannot fight them. Not like this. Ethan looked down at Alira, who opened her glowing eyes and stared at him with calm trust. I know, he whispered. But we don't have a choice. Thalon pointed to a narrow trench that led toward the outpost's side entrance. They don't guard the east wall. Too steep. Too much ice. But we can climb it if we move fast. Ethan nodded. Then turned to the hunter. Can you distract them? The hunter tilted his head. I can do more than that, he said. Then vanished into the trees like a shadow made of ice. Ethan wrapped a scarf tighter around Lysari. Then tucked Alira inside his coat. We climb now. He said to Thalon, no turning back. They reached the trench within minutes. Crawling through broken wire and burned ground. The climb was steep and slippery. But Ethan never let go, not of the child, not of the hope she carried, halfway up. Gunfire erupted on the far side of the outpost. The raiders shouted in confusion as smoke grenades exploded across the western fields. The hunter had begun his attack. Thalon pulled himself over the edge of the wall and reached down to help Ethan. Together, they dragged Lysari up and ducked into the ruins of the base. Inside, the outpost was worse than expected, bodies frozen in place. Shattered screens, broken lights flickering weakly in the snow-dark corridors. But one room still had power. Medical bay sealed behind a half-bent door. Ethan forced it open with a metal pipe. Then carried Lysari inside and laid her on a table. Hold on, he said. Just a little longer. He activated the med unit. And blinking lights scanned Lysari's body. Warning signs appeared: internal bleeding, organ collapse, severe malnutrition. The machine buzzed and began emergency treatment. Alira watched from Ethan's arms. Her eyes glowing a soft blue now. Pulsing like a heartbeat. Lysari reached out weakly and touched her daughter's hand. If I do not survive, she said, you must tell her. Tell her I gave everything so she could be more than me. You'll tell her yourself. Ethan said, voice shaking, you will. But deep inside, he feared that might be a lie. Thalon guarded the door, rifle aimed at the hallway. Footsteps approached, not raiders, but someone else, heavier, slower, more deliberate. The hunter stepped in, armor scorched, carrying a broken raider helmet in one hand. They're retreating, he said. They saw the fire. They thought a squad was attacking. They ran. Ethan let out a breath and closed his eyes. Good, he whispered. That's good. Then a sound stopped him. Lysari's breathing stuttered, then slowed. Her hand slipped from Alira's. Ethan turned quickly. But the Medunit had already fallen silent. Lysari lay still, eyes closed. A faint smile on her lips. He didn't cry. Not yet. He looked at Alira, who stared at her mother's face, then reached out and touched Lysari's cheek. A pulse of light shimmered between them, soft and golden, like a farewell spoken in a language older than words. Then it faded, and Ethan whispered, she was brave. Braver than any soldier I ever knew. Outside, the snow stopped falling, and the sky cleared just enough for the stars to look down on the path they had burned through fire and ice. Asterisk, the burning gate. Asterisk, the morning light felt hollow as it slipped through the shattered roof of the medical bay. Lysari's body was still. Wrapped gently in a rescue blanket Ethan found in one of the lockers. Alara sat quietly beside her. Not crying, not blinking, just watching with her strange, glowing eyes. Ethan knelt nearby, his hands resting on his knees, his rifle leaning against the wall behind him. He didn't speak to anyone for a long time. The silence wasn't just grief, it was a storm held inside his chest. Waiting to break, Thalon stood in the doorway, eyes scanning the broken hallway beyond, his face unreadable. The hunter cleaned blood from his blade. Silent and calm, as if preparing for something worse. They all knew it wasn't over. Ethan finally stood and looked down at Alira. She's gone. He said softly, "But you're still here, so I will be too." He wrapped Alira in a thermal sling, pulled tight across his chest, then turned to the others. "This place is ruined. We need to move. Somewhere safer. Somewhere that's not." Burned to the ground, the hunter nodded. "There is an old bunker beyond the southern cliffs, hidden, forgotten. We can reach it by nightfall if we move now." Ethan didn't ask how he knew. He simply said, "Then lead the way," before leaving. He placed Lasari's body on a raised platform and lit a flare beside her. The red light cast soft shadows over her face, and for a moment she looked like she was just sleeping. "Rest now," he whispered. "You did everything right." They left the base through a shattered gate, where the metal had melted and run like wax down the stone. The world beyond looked raw and open, like a wound still bleeding. Smoke hung in the air, and fire still crackled. In some of the trees, Alira didn't make a sound as they walked, her tiny hands gripping Ethan's jacket tightly. She wasn't afraid, not yet, but Ethan knew she would feel everything soon. Grief wasn't fast for children like her, would come quietly, like a shadow creeping in. They moved along a broken road, choked with snow and ash. Rusting vehicles leaned sideways, half buried, filled with bones and memories. Fallon stayed ahead, the hunter behind, and Ethan in the middle, guarding Alira like a heartbeat. They reached the edge of the cliffs just before sunset. Below, a winding path led through a narrow canyon. Blackened by old fire, the entrance to the bunker was there, hidden behind a collapsed radio tower. But they weren't alone. Shapes moved between the trees, figures in bone armor, carrying plasma spears and scanning the snow. Raiders again. Or worse, Ethan dropped to one knee, signaling the others to stay low. "They're looking for something," he whispered. "Maybe tracking the flare we lit at the outpost. They're hunting survivors." Thalon said, "Looking for those who escaped the purge." Ethan looked down at Alira, who stared back calmly, her glow pulsing softly under his coat. "She can't fall into their hands," he said. "Not ever." The hunter nodded and pulled a curved blade from his back. "I'll draw them west, burn their eyes with fire." You slipped through the canyon and reached the gate. Ethan grabbed his arm. "You might not come back. I'm already dead in their eyes." The hunter replied, "This is my way to live again," without another word. The hunter vanished into the trees, and seconds later, smoke rose again, bright and fast, followed by shouts and screams. Ethan didn't wait. He ran with Alira pressed tight to his chest, Fallon close behind, the snow crunching beneath them like cracking bones. They slipped between rocks, past frozen pools and scorched earth, hearts pounding like war drums. The canyon narrowed, and ahead was a steel door half buried by fallen stone. Fallon used a plasma charge to blow the debris aside, and the ground shook as the door creaked open. Inside, the air was dry and cold, but clean. Flickering lights buzzed overhead, revealing a long hallway lined with rooms, each one untouched for years. They entered and sealed the door behind them. Ethan collapsed against the wall, panting, Alira still silent in his arms. She looked up at him, her eyes now brighter than before, like she had seen something he had not, like she understood what they had lost and what they had gained. Fallon moved down the hall, checking each room. Clearing dust and searching for supplies, he found food, water, blankets, even a working generator, for the first time in days. They had warmth and light. Ethan laid Alira on a small cot and sat beside her, brushing her hair gently with his hand. "You're safe," he whispered. At least for tonight. The door held firm behind them, and no sound came from outside. But the sky beyond the canyon still burned. And Ethan knew this wasn't the end. It was only the gate one that opened toward something far greater. The last gift, *, the bunker, was quiet. But it didn't feel like peace. Felt like a breath held too long. The walls hummed softly from the old generator, and warm air moved through the vents like whispers from forgotten voices. Ethan sat on the floor beside Elira's cot, his back against cold steel, eyes wide open in the dark. Elira slept with her small hand curled against her chest, her glow dim and steady. Like a candle holding back the night, she had not cried since Lysari died. She had not made a sound at all. Thalen moved between rooms, checking supplies, trying to find anything that might heal, fix, or explain. He was quiet too, and when he passed by Elira's room, he always paused, staring at her with the same question Ethan had. What is she becoming? The hunter had not returned. There had been no sounds from outside. No knocks, no signals, no footsteps. Only the wind and the distant memory of fire. Ethan finally stood and opened the comms panel in the wall. He powered it up slowly, piece by piece, afraid the signal would bring more enemies instead of help, but he had to try. A soft beep confirmed the line was open. He sent a short message, a location, a name, and 3 words: "Child is alive." Then he turned and looked at Elira again. Her eyes were open now, watching him without blinking, glowing bright enough to light the edge of his jacket. "You heard me," he said quietly, "didn't you?" She didn't answer, but he saw something in her eyes: recognition, calm, and something far older than she should have known. Ethan sat beside her, rested his hand on her blanket, and spoke without expecting words in return. "I think your mother knew. She saw what the rest of us didn't. She gave everything," he said. "Not because of power, not because of duty, but because of love. That was her last gift to you." Thalen entered slowly and placed something on the table. Small silver band etched with alien symbols. "I found it in Lyceras's pack," he said. "It's a memory key. It may have her thoughts or her voice. It still works." Ethan picked it up, turned it in his fingers, then pressed it against the data reader built into the wall. A soft chime rang out, and then Lysari's voice filled the room, clear, strong, and full of life. "If you are hearing this," she said, "then I am no longer with you." Ethan froze, and even Thalen stepped back, as if her words carried heat and weight. Elira sat up slowly, her glowing eyes locked on the wall, her breath silent. Lysari's voice continued. "My name is Lysari, daughter of the house that fell in flame. I carried a child into this broken world not for war, not for power, but for something greater. She is the bridge. She is the seed. She is what remains when both sides are gone. I chose a human because I saw in your kind a courage. We had forgotten. You break, but you keep walking. You lose, but you still give. I offer my daughter to that path, not to be used, not to be worshipped, but to be protected. To be raised in love, not fear. If you are the one who carries her now, thank you. That is all I ever wanted." The message ended, and the room was silent again. Ethan felt something deep in his chest crack open, not pain, but something close to healing. He turned to Thalen, who now looked at Elira like she was not just a child, but a future. "I'm going to raise her," Ethan said, "no matter what comes. Not as a weapon, not as a symbol, just as my daughter." Thalen gave a slow nod. "Then I stay. Until she no longer needs guarding. Or until I fall." They set up a new home within the bunker slowly. Piece by piece, Ethan found a soft old coat and cut it into new clothes for Elira. He taught her how to drink from a cup, how to walk on shaking legs, how to speak one word at a time, and each time she looked at him, it wasn't just as a protectorate, was as something more. He was not her blood, but she called him father all the same. Outside, storms passed, years changed. But inside the bunker, a quiet life grew like a flower in dry earth, one that no war could erase. And when Elira finally stepped out of the bunker for the first time, her hand in Ethan's, The sky was clear. The stars above shimmered like the first night in the temple, and a soft voice hearse whispered, "She gave me life. You gave me a future."